Hello everybody, this is Chapter 3 and Lesson 1, Chapter 3, Lesson 1 in Chapter 3. So we're going to be going through the PowerPoint and through the chapter just like the previous podcasts. Most of the information I'll talk about will be on the midterm and or on the final. So Chapter 3, we're looking at play, leisure, and recreation in early societies. Play, leisure, recreation in early societies. And you're looking at the earliest society. Their play and leisure is usually associated with some type of warfare as well as some type of skill building or tradition. And so we primarily see these activities shown in hunting or hunting types of sports. The skill building aspect or materials building would be surrounded or closely related to hunting, weaponry. And then you also see other types of traditions and recreational activities based in warfare or some type of a ritual or religious aspect to the warfare or to the hunt or to the coming of the hunting season, okay, or just general superstitious or religious practices. In the first known game, it's in your book, first page in Chapter 3, is Talichi, and this first game had devastating consequences. It was a basketball-like game, but they actually used a human head, and the loser of the game was actually sacrificed. So it's a very interesting beginning or a very interesting first game. It's very popular. It was widely used because all you need about 200-foot long course with about 30 feet wide, and then it was situated between two temples. And it was very interesting that the losers would have such devastating consequences. In your book has an expert that says this: a rubber ball used in the ancient game symbolized the sun, and by making it carry on across the court, players hope to perpetuate the daily arc of the heavenly sphere. And what happened is that after the losing team was commonly offered up for ritual sacrifice, their hearts cut out with blades of razor-sharp stone. And that's one way to shorten the post-game interviews. So that's what your book says about that. Very interesting. And we're looking at the ancient Aztec society. And so they had a game like that. Moving on, there's other types of play, other types of activities. And what was known around that time as well are these itas, or victory dances. And many times after a good hunt or after some sort of prosperity came into the tribe or into the culture group, you would have a victory dance, some sort of celebration. And this was also traditional, but also very exciting. And sociologists have actually studied that when sociologists have looked at the dawn of religion or the beginnings of certain types of religions. And what they looked at were these victory dances, where they would dance kind of in either a fasting state or a state where they're feasting, a gluttonous state, and they're dancing and they're moving and they're doing it for such a long period of time that they've kind of enter into some kind of a self-spiritual awareness where they're kind of I think we would say that they were in the zone. They were just totally focused and having the runner's high is how we would say it. But they commonly experienced this, and this was known as a spiritual experience that would come as a result of these victory dances, these big tribal celebrations and festivities that they would have, with dancing being the core at it. Moving on, if we're looking at some of the ancient civilizations, besides the Aztecs, okay, or the Mayans, or some of the large civilizations there in Central America, which reminds me, I was actually in Belize and was able to kayak, canoe/kayak into a cave that the Aztecs had used, and in that cave, high up on the walls, there were some ledges, some platforms, and up on those platforms, you very preserved were human skulls and their crossbones, and this is where human sacrifices took place. And it was very interesting, yet creepy at the same time. So that was in Belize, there in Central America. Okay, so we're looking at, we move on to one of the larger, most well-known societies that really put their thumbprint, so to speak, on recreation, would be the Egyptians. And in ancient Egypt, we see the first real class structure, as opposed to just royalty and slaves. You actually have some folks in between there. Okay, so a first class structure, and what they are giving you in this society that went on for a decent amount of time is wrestling. They're giving you gymnastics, exercising, weightlifting, okay, and some various ball games. And it's interesting because these type of games came from the ruling class, or the upper ruling class, when they don't have a lot to do because other people are doing the work for them. Secondly, they didn't wear a lot of clothes, and they're one of the first societies to be very, very aware of fitness, very aware of body image and how they looked in their royalty circles. And so they did a lot of face painting, they did a lot of shaving, and they did a lot of body sculpting, is what they called it, which would really, and we would see it as weightlifting now, or keeping the body in shape by exercising various large muscle groups. So they have a nice sculpted look. The other thing that we get from Egypt is the first real social entertainment. Not entertainment by sacrificing their own people after a weird basketball game, but entertainment in the form of, well, this group is just good for entertainers, and they're going to entertain us, and they're going to dance, and they're going to play music, they're going to sing, and they're going to do these things. They were also known to have full orchestras, which is very, very interesting. A civilization that was that old to be so advanced. We also have a couple other civilizations that were worthy to mention. Is you've got Assyria and Babylonia. Okay, and in Assyria, which will probably be on your test, is Assyria was the first to establish a park, or what we would consider a national park, purely for the purpose of hunting lions and for hunting the big game. Yeah, they enjoyed dancing as well. They enjoyed listening to music and having large banquets, especially with their kill from their lion hunt. But they were the first to establish parks and set aside some kind of an area, not necessarily for conservation, but for their sport. We also have in Babylonia, we have the same type of experience, and that experience is heightened by the variety of parks established. Multiple parks established for not just hunting, but for various other types of activities, and a way to use the land besides for agriculture or food production. If you move on, you also have ancient Israel, which brings us another important factor in the history of recreation, leisure, and play. This is the first society that says that you can take a day off. That you can take a day off to rest, to worship, to be involved in one's religion, okay, and also for activity. That this is the first leisure day that you see in history, and it's very monumental that a day would be set aside to do something that you enjoy, to do something spiritual, to do something physical, to do something that brings feelings associated with recreation alive. Next one we have is we've got ancient Greece. Okay, ancient Greece and ancient Rome, two large societies that are providing a variety of activities and things. One thing that we have for the Romans is the Romans were the first to invent children's play toys. Okay? Children's play toys is what the Romans gave, as well as continued developments in the gymnastics and the sports, and then you have your first concept of the Olympic Games, or the Colosseum. And many of you are probably familiar with that, with a variety of popular movies that have shown that. You also see a large amount of corruption. I guess before that you see organization in sports, in leisure, and even in this concept of children playing and playing with toys. You see organization at all three of those levels. But with a society that big, and with several classes within that society, you actually saw some corruption as well. You saw some corruption in the sporting, gambling, and other things that still go on today that we do not consider very positive. So there's a variety of excellent things besides the corruption that these ancient societies provided for us. Again, the idea of a day, associated Sabbath type of a day for rest, for worship, for activity, for different types of organized sports and ball games. Then also the personal fitness, some types of stretching, weightlifting, body sculpting, okay? And then the actual various classes. The classes in society where you have the lower class being the working class, that's all they do, and the upper class working in a way, but having more time to participate in recreation.